Hi, I'm Erica from FiveLittleMonsters.com. Welcome to Summer Camp Crafts Saturdays with Five Little Monsters. I thought it'd be fun this summer to do a season-long series of camp crafts. You know those crafts that we all remember making as kids, whether it was at summer camps or activities, or even just with our friends. Think quick crafts that don't take a lot of supplies, are typically pretty inexpensive to make, and easy enough that just about anyone can do it. Things like friendship bracelets, tie-dye, and painted rocks. This series will start now and go through the end of August. There will be a total of 10 weeks of summer camp crafts coming out each Saturday, both on my blog and here on YouTube. So for week 1, I thought it'd be fun to start out with friendship bracelets. I have 5 styles of friendship bracelets I'm going to show you how to make in this video. Starting off with a couple of really traditional bracelets that we probably all remember making as kids, like the spiral twist bracelet, the flat bracelet, and then even just a couple of really simple braided bracelets. So, without further ado, let's get started. So the first thing I want to talk about is what you're going to need. One of the great things about friendship bracelets is you really don't need a lot. All you're going to need is some embroidery floss, something to hold your bracelet down. I've always used a safety pin. You can also tape it to something or even use a clipboard. Some scissors, and then for one of the bracelets, you're going to need a piece of cardboard that you can cut out. So we're going to start with the spiral twist bracelet. This, I feel like, is one of the most common, traditional styles of friendship bracelets, one that I remember making as a kid, where you're doing a series of knots in different colors. You can change colors as you go, but as you make the knots, they create this spiral on the bracelet. For most styles of friendship bracelets, you can do as many or as few strands as you want. But for this one, I would recommend doing at least 3 strands. The more strands you do, the thicker your bracelet will be. And this one's 3 strands, and it's pretty thin, so I wouldn't go much thinner than that. So I'm going to go ahead and cut some thread. And with a friendship bracelet, you're always going to want to cut your thread a little bit longer than you think you're going to need it, because as you knot it, obviously it will shorten. So I like to start with at least 18 inches up to maybe 24 or so, because you can always trim it afterwards. So I'm going to go ahead and grab, I have 4 different colors here, so I'm just going to do one of each color. So once I have all of my strands cut, I'm going to group them together so that they're all the same, all the ends are pretty even at the top, and I'm just going to make a knot. And you want to leave yourself a little bit of tails on the end. You don't want to tie it right at the end, because that's where I usually tie the bracelet on. And that's going to be your starting point. So I'm going to use, I'm just going to use a pressing mat that I have to pin it to. So I'm just going to pin through the knot with a safety pin. As a kid, I would always pin it to my pants, just to the thigh of my pants, and that is where I would do my bracelet. But here I'm going to use this pressing mat. You could use a pillow, or like I said, you can tape it to something, or you can use a clipboard and clip it into, clip the tail part with the clip on the clipboard. So the way we're going to make this bracelet is you're going to make kind of a 4 shape with your thread. So it's going to come out whichever color you want to start with first, which is up to you. You're going to do sections of colors. You can see here I have green, purple, blue, green, purple, blue. So whichever color you want to start with first, I'm going to go with this green color. You're going to make a 4 shape, so it crosses over the other strands on your bracelet. And then you're going to bring this thread underneath, pull it through, and then pull it tight. And you're going to repeat that the number of times that you want to get your pattern. So on this bracelet, I did 12 of each color, 12 knots in each color, and then I would switch to the next color. So that's what I'm going to do on this one as well. I like that size of color chunk, but you can do as few or as many as you want. So that was one. I'm going to do the same thing, make the 4 and then pull it through. So that's 2. Bring your thread over, pull it under and through. That's 3, 4, 5, 6, and you can see the knots starting to spiral. So it's just a natural twist as you're tying your knots. Okay, so I'm just going to keep going. 7, and as it starts to spiral, you can bring it over so that the twist is going around and you're not having it twist as you knot. So do a couple more. 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So now I've done 12 knots, so I'm going to switch to my next color. And to do that, all you're going to do is pull that one back into your group of colors and then pull out the next thread you want to use. So I'm going to use this pink color. And now you're just going to repeat the same process, but with your new color that you're working with. So cross it over like a 4 and bring that end through. And pull up. Do it again until I have 12 pink knots. So that would be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And now we're going to switch to color number 3. So just pull that in and pull out your next color. And then you're just going to repeat that process until you have the length that you want on your bracelet. You can see on this one it just repeats green, purple, blue, green, purple, blue. So here we'll just do green, purple, or green, pink, dark purple, light purple, green, pink, dark purple, light purple, and just keep going until it's the length that you need. Once you reach the length that you want your bracelet to be, you're going to do the same thing that you did at the beginning and just tie a knot at the end. And you just want to try to get it as close as possible just to right at the end of your knots on your bracelet. And then, again, leaving a long tail so that you can tie it onto the person's wrist, you can just trim your ends, unpin it, and you have your spiral twist bracelet. And you can see that twist that's created as those knots are tied. All right, the second bracelet we're going to be doing is the flat friendship bracelet. And this is another one that I think is a really traditional style of friendship bracelet that a lot of us probably made as kids. You'll usually either see these bracelets in a stripe pattern like this one where it's striped but they're on a diagonal, or you'll see a chevron pattern where they're coming to a point in the center. I'm just going to do the striped pattern. The process is similar for both of them. It just depends on where you're doing your knots, but this is the one I'm going to show as the striped. So again, first thing we're going to need to do is start with our strands of thread. This one is done with 6 strands, and you can kind of see the repeat here if you look. I have purple, white, pink, like a fuchsia, pink, white. And then it repeats purple, white, pink, fuchsia, white, or pink, white. So this bracelet, the order that you do it in is what's going to determine your pattern. You can see on this one I had one of the purple, one of the fuchsia color, and then I had 2 strands of white and 2 strands of pink. If I had placed those 2 strands of white together, it would have given me a thicker white stripe, but I did it so that they were each just a single stripe of color, but that's how you get the pattern that you end up with. You can again do kind of any number of threads you want. I would recommend probably somewhere in the 6 to 8 range for this bracelet. The more threads you do, the wider your bracelet will be. So on this one, I'm again going to do 6, just like I did on that one. So I've got 6 strands of thread here, 6 strands of embroidery floss. And just like the last one, I'm just going to start by tying a knot with all of my strands and leaving some tail there. And again, I'm just going to pin it in place, but you can use the same options as before. And now I'm going to determine my pattern. So for this bracelet, I am using 2 shades of yellow. So there's this golden color, a lighter yellow, and then I have 4 different shades of pink. So I have just 1 strand of each color. So I'm going to go with kind of like an ombre type look, which means I'm going to do my pinks. I'm going to go from starting with my darkest pink to my lightest pink, and then my lightest yellow to my darkest yellow. And then it'll go back to my darkest pink. So once you've determined your color pattern that you're going to go for, it is time to start knotting. Now, the knot that you're going to use is exactly the same knot that you used on the spiral bracelet, but rather than doing it over the whole group, you're going to do it on 1 thread at a time. So we're going to take our thread number 1, which in my case is going to be this darkest pink, and we're going to go cross over, make our little 4 just like we did before, over our thread number 2. And you are going to make that same knot, go over and then pull it up underneath. And you're going to do that 2 times on this 1 thread. So 1 knot and 2. And then we're going to set this one down out of the way, and we're going to move to thread number 3. And we're going to do the exact same thing. Make our 4, pull it through once and twice. Set that one aside. Now we move to our next thread, which was our 4th thread in the pattern. And again, cross it over like a 4, pull it up through the middle, once and twice. Now on to thread number 5. Knot it once and 2 times. And now we move on to our last thread. And we do it exactly the same. 1 knot and 2. So now our second thread's now our first thread, third one's now the second, and now our first thread is now our thread number 6. So keeping the threads in the exact same order the whole time, we're going to move. So now this second thread is going to be our working thread, our thread number 1. So we're going to do the exact same thing that we just did with this one, but now we're going to do it with this one. So we're going to tie 2 knots on this thread, 2 knots on the next, 2 knots on the next, 2 knots on the next, and ending with 2 knots on this one. So going to take our thread that we're knotting, do our number 4 around that first one, and tie 1 and 2 knots, set it aside. Moving on to our lightest pink, 1, 2, and set it to the side. Now on to the next one. 1, 2, 1 and 2. And now on our last one. 1 and 2. And now you can see now that second color is in our 6th place. And you'll just continue the same thing. Now we're going to be working with what's our third color and is now in place number 1. And we'll tie it on each of them until it moves over here. Then we'll do this one, go across until we've done all of them, and we'll just keep repeating that pattern, and that's what's going to give us that striped pattern. So each of those, so each thread will create a stripe and it will give us the striped pattern. So go ahead and just keep going, tying 2 knots on each thread until we reach the length that we want for our bracelet. So here you can see I've done 1 full color repeat. So now this pattern is just going to repeat until the end of the bracelet. The first color is back in the first position and the last color is back in the last position. So once you have the length that you want for your bracelet, we're just going to end it the same way as the last one. Take all of your threads and make a knot just right at the base of your bracelet. And that finishes off your bracelet. You can unpin it. Just trim off the extra. And there you have your flat bracelet. And you can see how just the placement of colors changes the look of it so much. This one has much more of a striped look, and this one, the colors just kind of fade into each other a little bit more. And so you can play around with the different striping patterns and the placement of your colors to get a lot of different looks. Now we're going to move on to the third style of bracelet, which is, I've heard it called the Jellyfish Bracelet. I'm sure there's other names for it too. But it is a bracelet that's going to have kind of a woven texture. And this one is made differently than all of the other bracelets. This time, rather than having like a safety pin or tape or something to hold the end of your bracelet down, you're actually going to be making it on a little loom. So for this, we're going to need a piece of cardboard. You could trace a circle onto your cardboard. I'm just going to freehand cut it because it doesn't need to be perfect. But you're just going to want to cut out a circle. And once you have a circle shape, like I said, it doesn't need to be perfect. You're going to cut 8 slits into this circle. So the way that I like to do it is I like to start by cutting a slit, kind of cutting it in half, like a slit on each side. So there's 2 slits, and then I'm going to basically quarter it. So then cut one here, and one here, and then cut one in between each of those 4 slits to give me 8 slits total. So 1, 2, 3, 4 more slits. And then the last thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need a hole in the center, and I'm just going to do that with my scissors. I'm sure there's better ways to do it, but it just needs to be a hole big enough to fit your threads through. Okay, so this is the loom that you're going to use to make your bracelet. The next thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need to get your threads. So you're going to need 7 colors or 7 threads for this bracelet. So you can do 7 different colors. I've done that before. Or in this case, I'm doing 4 colors. I have 2 of the darker pink, 2 of the green, 2 of the blue, and 1 of the lighter pink. You could do 2, 2, and 3 to get your 7. There's a lot of different ways you could do it, but I'm going to just tie a knot just like we have with all the other ones. You know, a couple inches from the end, tie a knot, and that's going to be the starting point of our bracelet. So you're going to take your loom and you're going to push that knot through. So the tail is coming through that hole, but the knot you're going to have be like right in the hole. And now what you're going to do is you're going to take your threads and you're going to place 1 thread in each slit. And you can do this, it's going to give you a different pattern depending on how you lay out your threads, but I'll be honest, I don't totally know how the pattern works, so I'm not very good at being able to like line it up and say, well, if I do these 2 next to each other, and then, you know, it's going to give me this pattern. So I just put them in, and it's a surprise to see what your bracelet's going to look like. So I'm going to go green. I think I'm going to do the colors next to each other. So 2 pinks and then 2 greens. And then I think I'm going to do my single pink and then my 2 blues. It doesn't really matter. These are going to be moved around as you make your bracelet, but you should have 1 empty slit because you had 8 slits, 7 threads. I feel like this bracelet is a lot easier than some of the other ones. It's something that you can even do with little kids because you really just need to be able to count to 3 and move the threads. You're not tying knots or anything like that. So the way that you do it is you take your empty slit and then you go you skip 2 threads to the left. So that would be my 2 blues. And then you go to your 3rd thread and that's the one you're going to move. And you're going to take that thread out of the slit and move it into the empty slit. And now your empty slit is over here. So then you're going to do the same thing. 1, 2, 3, and that's the thread you're going to move. Same thing again. There's your empty slit. 1, 2, 3 to the left, and we're going to move this blue thread. Empty slit, 1, 2, 3 to the left, and move that to the empty slit. And you're just going to continue to do that around and around. The one thing I will say about this bracelet is I do feel like it is one of the slowest growing bracelets, but your bracelet will start to come out here. And you can kind of see why it's called the Jellyfish Bracelet because of the way that the threads hang down. But this is going to be the beginning of your bracelet, and that will get longer and longer as you continue to work. Like I said, it moves fairly slowly. So I have one that has been done quite a ways. So you can see, same thing, you've got your 7 threads and your empty slit, and then you've got your bracelet growing out that bottom hole where you started it. So as you keep working this one, this piece would grow like this, and you can see the woven stitches on there. So again, you just keep doing third string to the left, crossing it over the other two and putting it in the empty slit. And just do that over and over again until your bracelet reaches the length that you want. So I'm going to set this one aside and we're going to move to this one to show you how to take it off. And it's really easy. It's just like any of the other ones, but this time you're just going to pull all of the threads out of their slits. And pull the bracelet through, and you're just going to tie off that end. Just try to get your knot right at the end of your bracelet. And trim your ends, leaving a little tail. That's probably a little longer than it needs to be, but I can trim it up later. And you can see the different color combinations and the different placement of the threads create different patterns in there. Another thing about the jellyfish bracelets is you can also do those with yarn, which goes a little bit quicker because it's thicker. So if you want to do it with young kids, yarn might be a better option than the embroidery floss. You're going to end up with a fatter bracelet, but also it'll go a little bit quicker too. Now we're on to our last two bracelets, and these two are fairly similar. They are just simple braided bracelets. I have a 3-strand braid, so just a really basic, simple braided bracelet. And then I also have a 4-strand braid, so if you want something that's kind of just a simple braid, but a little bit more interesting and complex, there's a 4-strand braid. You can do more than 4 strands. You could do a 5-strand braid, a 6-strand braid, but I'm only going to show today the 4-strand braid and the 3-strand braid. So these are probably the easiest bracelets to make. They're super quick, super easy, don't take a long time to do. And a lot of people already know how to braid, so that makes it really easy as well. So we're going to start with the simple 3-strand braid. So for that, you're either going to want to have 3 strands that are extra long that you can fold in half, or you're going to want to have 6 strands. So I have 3 strands here, but they're long enough that I'm going to fold them in half for my bracelet. So I'm just going to get those folded in half. And here on this loop end, I'm just going to tie my knot on that end. So it's going to tie all of those together. So the reason I like to do that is I like to have 2 strands of each color. If you just have 1 strand of each color and you're just doing a 3-stranded bracelet, it's going to be really, really skinny. And so I just think it looks better if you have 2 of each strand. So you have just a little bit more size to your bracelet, a little bit more thickness. Because like even with 2 strands of each of the 3 colors, it's not a very thick or big bracelet. So I think if you just did 1, it would just be so skinny and tiny. So we're going to start it out the same way. We're going to pin it to our board or tape it, whatever you want to do. And then you're just going to do a normal 3-strand braid. Cross the left strand over the middle, cross the right strand over the middle, cross the left strand over the middle, cross the right strand over the middle. Super easy, but just a couple of like tricks and tips to kind of make it look really nice. We're going to go ahead and cross our left strand, then cross our right strand. And you just want to kind of make sure that your braid is like laying flat. You don't want to pull it super tight so it's really snug, but kind of keep it like tight enough that it stays together, but also loose enough that it kind of lays flat and nice and isn't like just pulled really tight. So just crossing your strands over like you would on a normal braid. We're going to cross the left strand over the middle and then cross the right strand over the middle, left strand over the middle, right strand over the middle, and just trying to hold them so that they're, like I said, tight enough that they stay together, but not pulling it really tight so that it's just like, so it still kind of lays a little bit flat. And just keep going. Once you have the length that you want for your bracelet and you're ready to tie it off, just go ahead and do the same thing like you did with all of the other bracelets, where you're just going to knot the end. And just try to have it end right there at the end of your braid. Make it nice and tight, and then you can trim off the excess, and you have your braided bracelet. So for our last bracelet, we have the 4-strand braid. So again, kind of just a twist on a regular braid, but still a really simple, really basic bracelet to make. So just like the 3-strand braid, we're going to start with 2 strands of each color. So for me, I'm just going to take 1 strand of each color and fold it in half, and you're obviously going to need 4 colors. Or 4 strands. You don't have to use 4 colors, but I am using 4 different colors. So I have 2 shades of pink, a lighter pink and a darker pink, and then a green and a blue. So I'm just going to take my 4 strands and I'm going to fold them in half, tie a knot in the end, and then just like all of the others, I'm just going to pin it to my surface. Okay. And now I'm going to separate it out into the colors so that strands, each of the strands is going to be 2, but there's my 2 blues, my 2 lighter pinks, my 2 greens, and my 2 darker pinks. So this one, it's very similar to a 3-strand braid, but instead of just going over and stopping, you're going to go over, under, over. So your number 1 strand, my dark pink is in the first position here, is going to move all the way over to the end and be my 4th position string. So just do over, under, over to get you back to the other side. So over, under the light pink, over the blue. And now that one's in the 4th position. And this one, just like with the 3-strand braid, you just don't want to pull it super tight because you want to be able to see the pattern and have it really show up nicely and kind of lay flat on your wrist. So green strand is now in the number 1 position, so we're going to go over the pink, under the blue, over the other pink. So over, under, and over. Now same thing, but with the light pink strand, over the blue, under the pink, and over the green, and into 4th position. And you can see the pattern starting to form. On the 4-strand braid, there's kind of a little thread bump in the middle, and you're kind of starting to see that there. So now blue is in 1st position, so we're going to go over the dark pink, under the light green, and over the light pink. And just continue doing that until you reach the length that you want for your bracelet. And then just like on the other bracelets, when you get to the end, just go ahead and tie a knot and trim your ends. And you have your finished 4-strand friendship bracelet. And there you go, a variety of fun friendship bracelets.